Welcome back to Prep Station Literature in English. So we'll continue from where we stopped. Metaphysical poetry has all but one of the elements. A, conceit, B, imagery, C, wit, D, simile. Now, when you talk about metaphysical poetry, in this case, you're talking about a type of poem that is full of imagery and is full of wit itself and conceit with meter as well. An example of a metaphysical poem is The Good Moral by John Donne. That's a metaphysical poem in the sense that it brings in a lot of nature into it and then allusions to as well. So in this case, it does not make use of simile here. Literary appreciation. So we'll go into this aspect and then we'll look at this. Like I said, literary appreciation, it makes use of, when you're tested on literary appreciation, you're looking at a lot of seen and unseen poems. Let's look at an example. Like the dew in the morning, like the sun in the noon, you're always here. The figure of speech used above is dash. A, personification. B, metaphor. C, simile. D, apostrophe. So if you look at it carefully, it's not a personification because no non-living thing was given a human attribute. And it's not a metaphor because the writer has made use of the use of like, and it shows that there's a bit of comparison here. Then it's not an apostrophe, okay? In this case, it's a simile. It's a simile because something is being compared to the dew in the morning and also in the sun and also to the sun with the use of like and like, although there's no as, with the use of like, so something has, two things have been compared here. Simile is the answer. The next question, I find no peace and all my war is done. I fear and hope, I burn and freeze like ice. The literary device used in the above is A, paradox, B, euphemism, C, understatement, D, hyperbole. The answer is paradox. A paradox makes use of compares two things, although without the use of like and as. Let's look at this again. I find no peace and all my war is done. Peace and war. I fear and hope. I burn and freeze like ice. So in this case, two things. It's similar to your oxymoron, but in this case, it's not placed side by side because the paradox is making use of placing two contradictory statements side by side for the purpose of emphasis. The next question, tired teachers wipe the chalk dust on their faces. The school dam bursts and floods of hungry children melt into their mothers' bosoms. Here in this case, you could see that the lines run into one another. The tired teachers wipe the chalk dust on their faces, the school dam burst, and floods of hungry children melt into their mothers' bosoms. It's, of course, an enjambment. The lines are running into each other, but at the same time, let's look at the question. It says, from the above excerpt describing the end of a school day, children's movements are made memorable through the use in lines 4 in lines 4 to 5 of the poem. Now let's look at lines 4 to 5. And floods of hungry children melt into their mothers' bosoms. A, simile. B, metaphor. C, alliteration. D, inversion. The answer is metaphor. It's not a simile because there's no use of like and as, and it's comparing the floods of hungry children and how they move and how they go to their mother's embrace, okay? So because they go to their mother's embrace, they are seen as children that melts into their mother's bosom. So it's looking at the action itself. It's a metaphor. Note that comparison is made with the use of events. That action, the events, the floods of hungry children, they're running and then they go to where their mothers are. 24. If the earth were mortal, where would the flowers live? Where would the flower live? If you left the earth, what will happen to beauty? The poet's stone is dash, lamentative, A. B. Satiric, C. Imploring, D. Adorning. I'll take that again. If the earth were mortal, where would the flower live? If you left the earth, what would happen to beauty? It is not a satire, and it's not imploring, neither is it adorning. The answer is lamentative. With the use of these questions, the writer or the poet in this case is lamenting and trying to find out what will happen in situations like this. Probably the person is trying to commit suicide, and then the writer made this question, asked these questions rather. If the earth were mortal, where would the flowers live? If you as a person left the earth, what will happen to beauty? So trying to give hope to the person, maybe the person is tired of life, and then at the same time giving this statement and trying to make the person see reason on his or her importance as to why he or she shouldn't just leave the earth. Lamentative. 25. You do not have to be brutal to be a soldier, or rather, you are brutal not because you are a soldier, but because there is a sadist, a rapist, a fascist, and a murderer in you who is waiting for war and army uniforms to give them expression. The speaker from the excerpt contends that A. Soldiers are generally wicked. B. Human nature has to do with a profession. C. Soldiers are characteristically gentle. D. The latent brutality in man finds expression in war. The answer to this question is D. The brutality in man finds expression in war. So in this case, we are presented with a situation. The brutality came as a result of the fact that there was a situation, war going on. And that is why the soldiers of fortune were made to act the set in ways they acted. Okay, so they acted, they became brutal, and they became a sadist. Some ended up as rapists and some ended up as fascists. So let's look at questions from Second Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta, which is one of the books that you would be asked questions on. Remember I said earlier, this is JAM syllabus, and we are taking past question papers from JAM. So let's look at the first question. It says, Ada and Francis are both Igbo and are brought up in dash. A. Ibuza, B. Lagos, C. England, D. Delta. We know Ada was from Ibuza, which is a part of Delta State, and they later migrated to England. Then Ibuza is in Delta State, so they are both brought up in Lagos. The answer is B. Which of the following is not a theme in the novel? A. Marriage, B. Struggle for survival, C. Mistaken identity, D. Gender. All are themes except mistaken identity. Marriage is a theme in the sense that we notice how why Ada actually got married. To her, at first, she saw marriage as a form of escape from members of her family who were wicked to her, who she felt were wicked to her, rather. And then we see Ada's mother as well, too, and her marriage as well. Women were seen as objects to be owned. Struggle for survival, we see in the novel things Ada had to do to survive. Okay, so we look at gender equality, the gender of the male and the female folk, and how women were seen in the novel. Okay, so that's a theme. So the answer is mistaken identity. According to the novel, Ada sat next to a boy with dash on her first day at school. A. Crocro, B. Chickenpox, C. Boils, D. Measles. The answer is Crocro. That's when Ada went to school and she was made to sit next to the boy, and then she sat next to him, and after school her parents were looking at her. That's like her first experience at school. Ada was regarded as the dash by her in-laws. A. Chicken that laid eggs. B. Goat that fought with her husband. C. Goose that laid golden eggs. D. Goose that laid silver eggs. The answer, goose that laid golden eggs. Before she left for England, Ada had a very good job, and her father-in-law saw her as the goose that laid golden eggs because she was responsible for Frances' education and that of her sisters-in-law. So they saw her as someone that they actually treasured, that was bringing in the money, and that was why she was regarded as that by her in-laws. Number 30. The following are reasons why Mr. Noble found it difficult to evict his tenants, except A. They are control tenants. B. They are old and are used to the place. C. They do not fear threats and superstitions. D. They have connived with the lawyer. Remember Mr. Noble in the book, he was the landlord Ada and Francis had to live in his apartment at some point, and he had difficulty evicting his tenants for some of these reasons. So the answer is D. They have connived with the lawyer. There was actually no mention of a lawyer coming to evict the tenants anyway. So that's the answer. They are not afraid of threats and superstitions. He had tried that on several instances and the tenants refused to go. And some of his tenants were old. And yes, they are control tenants. We had cases where some of the siblings were in the apartment and they had challenges as well living the apartment. So we look at the next text, Unexpected Joy at Dawn by Alex Agyiri. 31. Massa is about dash years old, but she is already looking like a grandmother. A. 24, B. 25, C. 26, D. 23. Remember Massa in the novel. Massa was Nitaki's wife, and all through the novel she was sick. So in this case, one would say the novel describes her as a 25-year-old woman, but she aged because of the sickness, because of what she was going through. So the sickness made her age. So she's actually 25. Mama Oluorojo is a member of Dash Church. A. Amen Christ. B. Amen Christi. C. Amen Christi. D. Amen Christian. The answer to this question is Amen Christi. Mama Oluorojo was Nitaki's sister, a devout Christian who went around with her friend a book for evangelism, and she was a member of Amen Christi. Nitaki was from Dash tribe. A. Ga. B. Ha, Si, La, Di, Ba. The answer is the Ga tribe. Remember, Nitaki was born in Ghana, and it was said that he was from the Ga tribe. Although his parents were Nigerians, but he identified with the Ga tribe. Even though he had tribal marks, it wasn't stated where exactly he was from, though he claimed to be Yoruba at some point, or the tribal marks made him look like a Yoruba person, but he couldn't speak Yoruba, so he identified with the Ga tribe because he was born in Ghana. There he is, the last one. That's him all, I swear. It's him. I paid him 2,000 cedis for the ring. This statement refers to Dash. A. Kweku. B. Oraku. C. I put it to me. D. Mama Orojo. Remember Mama Orojo when she was leaving Nigeria for Ghana to go in search of her brother Nitaki. On the plane, she sat next to a young man who sold a gold ring to her for 2,000 cedis. And that young man duped her. That person was Talio, also known as I put it to me. So he was the one that made this statement, okay? Is the last one, that's him, I swear. I paid him 2,000 cedis for the ring. Okay, sorry, this statement refers to I put it to me. Mama Orojo was the one who made this statement, and then the person being referred to was I put it to me, also known as Talio. So Talio had multiple identities because of he was a crook that was engaged in illegal mining. So he had several identities, and he was known, as I put it to me, in some areas, and also Talio in some areas. He was a wanted man by the police. 35. Where does Mashak live in Nigeria? A. Hajj Camp. B. Hotel Iroyin. C. Miliki House. D. Ijashe. Hajj Camp was where all the immigrants stayed when they left Ghana for Nigeria. Miliki House was where Nitaki lived at some point. Then D. Ijashe was a place where Mama Orojo lived. So the answer to this question was Hotel Iroyin. Mashak was a prostitute, and that was where she lodged, or that was where she lived. She was after Nitaki when Ni died and wanted a relationship with him. We'll move on to Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. 36. The novel can be described as dash in nature. A. Gothic. B. Epistolary. C. Bildungsroman. D. Mythical in nature. The answer to this question is Gothic. A Gothic work is a type of novel that makes use of ghosts and apparitions at some point. It's kind of scary because they make use of the Moors, and then it's like the ghost floats as characters at some point. So that's a Gothic novel. It's not an epistolary because it's not a letter. It's not written, the novel is not written in form of a letter, and it's not a Bildungsroman because you do not have a situation where the characters grew up from childhood. Because if you're looking at a Bildungsroman, you could talk about Ngozi Adichie's Popular Hibiscus or To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's not mythical in nature either. It's a Gothic novel. In the novel, you have incidents where Catherine's ghost floated around, and the night where Mr. Lockwood went to Wuthering Heights and Catherine's ghost was knocking at the window saying, let me in, and things like that. So it's a Gothic novel. The plot of the novel is dash. A. Chronological. B. Cyclical. C. Sequential. D. Linear. The novel Wuthering Heights has a cyclical plot in the sense that the novel begins with when Mr. Lockwood got to Wuthering Heights, and then Nellie tells the story and gets back to that part where years later where Mr. Lockwood had to return again to Wuthering Heights. So it's cyclical in nature. It's not chronological in the sense that you have the beginning of the novel as maybe when Heathcliff was a child and then he was picked up by old Mr. Henshaw and all of that. So it's cyclical in nature. It goes round. Events moves like that. 38. Old Henshaw met Heathcliff while in A. Liverpool, B. Thrushcross Grange, C. Nottingham, D. Oxford. The answer to this question is Liverpool. He traveled, and then he saw Heathcliff as a street boy, and then he picked him up, brought him to Wuthering Heights. So Thrushcross Grange was the other part where Edgar and his sister Isabella lived. Okay, and it's not Oxford either. So the answer to this question is Liverpool. We'll go on a break and then we'll be right back.